Hello, welcome, good afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, good to see you again. Come and take your seats. Thank you very much. I know there is the most incredible selection of sweet delicacies in that room over there, but please come and take your seats now. Thank you. Welcome if you are joining us online. It's lovely to still have your presence with us today. And if you are joining us online, can I just remind you, in Swapcard, there is a Q&A function. Please leave us your thoughts and your comments there, and I will include as many as I can. Thank you. And we are now ready in the room. Fantastic. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, dear delegates, I am aware that there are some people who are joining us this afternoon, so welcome to you if you have just joined us. If you are, can I let you know that we are translating, we're interpreting into 6 different languages. So if you would like interpretation, if you scan the QR code that you can see on the screens either side of the stage, that will help you to download the Interactio app, and then the login that you need is JTP April 24 or JTP April 24 online, if you are watching us online. Wonderful. Okay, let's get going. Thank you. Dear delegates, we are here today and for the next day to really get to the heart of the challenges and the possibilities of a just transition. Now, if you are with us this morning, you will know that we have already talked about the challenges and the way to overcome them. And it was fabulous to hear some of the examples on this stage of projects who are beginning to see tangible results, in particular with how to attract and interact with those hard-to-reach communities. And we heard a lot about the young communities as well, and aging populations, and how to get both of those two communities to stay within an area, or indeed, particularly in the case of Sweden, if you remember, to be attracted to that area. So we've already shared lots and lots of examples. The just transition, as you know, is a key priority of the presidency of the Council of the EU. So I am absolutely delighted now that here to address us in the context of the Belgian presidency, to address us and to answer your questions, is the Minister for Climate, Environment, Sustainable Development and the Green Deal of Belgium. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Minister Zakia Khattabi.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to begin by sharing with you a firm conviction. The conviction that the ecological crisis we are confronted with is not just an environmental issue. It is, in my eyes, the social issue of this century, as it impacts differently and unfairly on countries and individuals alike, hitting the most vulnerable amongst us hardest, even though they are the least responsible for this crisis. And I repeat, in my view, the transition is therefore an imperative of social justice. The scientific consensus is clear. If we continue to exceed the planet's boundaries, this will affect not only our ecosystems, but also our daily lives, our economic capabilities, our health, and our overall security. Our social contracts and the future of our welfare states depend on the response we can give to this challenge. Yet, amidst this daunting reality, there lies an opportunity, a chance to shape a new world, one built on resilience, solidarity, and sustainability. In Belgium, we have been working intensely on the matter of a just transition the last couple of years. A broad democratic process was set up to collect input to orient our future policies. An interdisciplinary scientific high committee of 22 scholars was founded and tasked with formulating recommendations on organizing and institutionalizing a just transition in Belgium. Civil society, social partners, and several official advisor committees were brought together at several occasions to have in-depth discussions on specific sectorial and thematic aspects of a just transition. A citizens' assembly made up out of 65 citizens with a specific focus on the implication of vulnerable groups was tasked with replying to the question, which conditions need to be met for the transition to be deemed just and inclusive? Finally, also the administrations were charged with analyzing the biggest challenges and opportunities coming their way in the context of organizing and implementing just transition policies. At this moment, we are analyzing the outcomes of all these processes in order to draft a blueprint for a robust and inclusive just transition policy framework in Belgium. Also in Europe, several important steps, to which many of you here today have contributed, have already been taken to rise to this challenge in the last couple of years. With initiatives such as the Just Transition Mechanism and the adoption of just transition plans across the EU, targeted support is flowing to the region most affected by the transition away from coal and other carbon-intensive industries. Additionally, the Social Climate Fund will provide up to 65 billion euros in order to make Europe's renovation wave and mobility transformation a success for vulnerable households, transport users, and micro-enterprises. And furthermore, the Council also adopted recommendations on ensuring a fair transition towards climate neutrality in 2022, which provides member states with a broad set of insights and tools. Despite these initiatives, much work remains to be done to guarantee the acceptability of the urgently needed ecological policies and measures that we are putting in place at European level. A recent Eurobarometer survey showed that 88% of Europeans are in favor of an ecological transition that leaves no one behind. Yet, only 46% of Europeans are currently convinced that by 2050, sustainable products and services will be affordable for everyone, including the poorest. How can we respond to the fears expressed by our citizens? I believe that our role is not only to avoid the risks of an unfair transition, but also to make the ecological transition into a real lever in the fight against inequalities. So to continue the crucial work the EU has been doing in this aspect, the Belgian Presidency found it a few months before the European elections paramount to put just transition high on the European agenda again. I'm convinced we must persist in this crucial dialogue to collectively shape the terms of this transition before the terms are imposed upon us. To help us decide upon these terms, the implication of stakeholders with on-the-ground experience and insight is essential. And this is why we asked the European Economic and Social Committee to draft an opinion on the steps the EU should take to establish a comprehensive just transition policy framework. And in December, the EESC plenary session adopted the opinion on this framework. And it is structured around 6 pillars and encompasses over 70 EU-level policy proposals and measures. And allow me to briefly outline the 6 pillars. First, a European just transition policy framework should be based on a holistic, coordinated and integrated whole-of-government approach to policy making. Second, this framework should promote a sustainable economy that provides prosperity for all within planetary boundaries. Third, our European social model and welfare states are the backbone of the European just transition policy framework. Fourth, social dialogue, civic dialogue and the participation of local and regional authorities are key for delivering this just transition. Fifth, Strong and resilient sustainable businesses are a prerequisite for the just transition. And finally, the sixth pillar deals with the need of adequate investment. I believe this opinion is an insightful and crucial document. It provides us with a solid basis from which to develop a European just transition policy framework fit for the future. And it is therefore we decided it had to be presented and thoroughly discussed during the informal council meeting of environment ministers in January. And it was also the basis of a high-level discussion during the European Conference for a Just Transition in March, where member states, social partners, civil society, and academic experts all supported the need for swift and decisive action to realize strong just transition policy in the EU. Additionally, it has also been an essential input for the proposal of Council conclusions that the Belgian Presidency wants to see adopted during the Environmental Council in June. However, to shape this European just transition policy framework, I'm convinced two other sorts of input are crucial as well. Namely, the best practices that exist in different member states, but also all the experiences that have been built up over the last couple of years by all of you. The Just Transition mechanism has shown the strength of European solidarity and showed that social and ecological solutions can and need to go hand by hand. I believe the knowledge, insights, and experiences built up by you over the last years needs to serve as a blueprint for our European just transition efforts in other sectors as well. Because it's not only our energy sector that needs to continue to go through a just transition. Other sectors face similar transformative challenges in our striving to remain within all planetary boundaries. I think about European agriculture and the long road still ahead for this sector to produce high-quality food in harmony with nature. I think about the efforts that still need to be made in the chemical sector in terms of pollution. I think about the mountains still to climb to produce sustainable cement and steel in a competitive way. The workers, communities, regions, and businesses depend on these sectors are also necessitate a just transition. The scale of what lies before us is formidable, but equipped with the lesson learned from the Just Transition mechanism, a strong and coherent European Just Transition policy and framework, and an investment strategy up to task, we have the means and vision to navigate a path that leads to a brighter future for everyone. And this is why I firmly believe that the EU, following on from its pioneering role with the Green Deal, needs to follow through now and keep the ecological and just transition at the heart of its agenda. Thank you for your attention.
Minister, thank you so much. Thank you. Would you like to come and take a seat? Thank you. Now, I have to say, about 10 minutes ago, I met the Minister for the first time, and the first thing she said to me was, I want to hear from the audience. I want to hear what you've been talking about, what is important to you, what can be done to help, just get a whole idea of the situation. So I'm going to open the floor immediately for questions, but actually not just questions, your comments and your thoughts as well, because you're here to listen. Is that right? Oh, that should be on. Try again.
You hear me? Yeah, you hear me. Yes, indeed. With all I've just presented, I have to confess and to admit that we are only at the beginning of our process. And I have some colleagues here who were already with you in the morning, and I've heard the experiences you have from your regions. And so we are very curious to hear from you which step we need to put higher in the agenda and so on. What are the mistakes that you've made that you want us not to see, to see done a second time. So we not really want to listen to you, but we really need to hear from your experience. And so for the time that I still have, I just want to listen to you, maybe to answer if there is some reflection that I want to share with you, but really I'm available to listen to your experiences. Thank you for that.
So there very much is now an open forum. What I'm going to do is we've got questions. If you want to use the Q&A function on Swapcard, you can use that. If you want to put your hand up in the room, you can do that straight away, and we can take questions from the room. And also, if you now go, if you can see we have a Slido QR code on the screens by you. So what I would like to do is get that ready as well, and we may well ask you some questions via Slido. First of all, though, let me put a few points to you that were talked about this morning and see if you agree with what I'm going to say. The first one that I think would be interesting to get your view on is skepticism and the challenges of getting a community all in the same place to trust, to listen, and to become engaged. And we had a really good example earlier of a geothermal plant which had sort of been on the cards for a few years, never really came to fruition, then suddenly got the funding. But the problem was the community is a bit fed up. It's like, yeah, right, whatever. How do you feel, or do you have examples of tackling skepticism and that maybe mistrust within a community? It's an interesting look on your face, by the way. It's like, yeah.
I think in those times, it's the major challenge that we're facing. I'm convinced that science can help us. It's only because we drive science policy based that we can tackle skepticism. Well, even from my place, it will be strange to hear that, but even from my place, I don't think that at this moment, politics will be credible, if I may say like that. And I say it with humility. When we see what is happening now with the Green Deal, the answer that we give to the agricultural crisis, we see that even politics now are just looking in a short term, the elections term, to be clear. And I think that we need, and that's also why I'm interested in your experience. I think it's only when we have some examples that shows what's the reality of the transition, but the transition built collectively, where we collectively and democratically we've decided the way for this transition. And that's what I'm also waiting from you to give me examples where you answers to these challenges.
Yeah.
So I return you the question.
Okay. Let's have a show of hands in the room. Who has faced challenges of trying to get a community on board? Yeah, okay. There's I can't quite see, I think it's a gentleman there just to your right now. You just put your hand up. What challenges have you had? Yeah, just there. Yeah, what? No? Okay. Who else had their hand up? Let's hear about some of the challenges that you've had in trying to convince people to get on board and to understand what the issues could be. Was that a hand I just saw there? Yep, there's one here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Voy a intervenir en español.
Okay, one moment so the audience can grab their translator if they need it.
Sí.
And if everyone is happy, yeah, please
sí.
go ahead.
Soy Ana Durán y soy presidenta de... Sí, para que se puedan... Perfecto. Aprovecho para agradecer a los traductores que llevan trabajando toda la mañana. Soy Ana Durán, soy presidenta de Euracon, una asociación que se inició como los ayuntamientos mineros europeos. y que desde que se fundó la Core Platform estamos trabajando aquí. Me gustaría aprovechar la presencia de la señora ministra de la presidencia de turno belga para decirle que en el informe del cese que se hace a petición de su gobierno se habla de establecer una visión social de la transición justa y para ello se pide que se cree un observatorio de la propia transición. Yo lo que quiero trasladar aquí es que lo que estamos viviendo en algunos territorios españoles y en otros de toda la Unión Europea es que esa transición funciona en algunos sitios que son más grandes, pero deja territorios que se van despoblando, en que la población joven se va porque no tiene alternativas y lo que queda son territorios con gente muy mayor, donde no llegan iniciativas, o por lo menos no las iniciativas vinculadas ni a nuevas tecnologías, ni a temas de eficiencia energética, ni a temas de energías verdes, porque simplemente no son atractivos para ese tipo de cosas. Entonces yo pediría que en ese observatorio que se va a desarrollar se tuvieran en cuenta otros indicadores. No se puede mirar solo el paro que hay en determinados sitios, sino que habrá que mirar cómo es la pirámide poblacional que había en los territorios, la que hay ahora mismo y qué tipo de cosas se pueden llevar allí. Estoy pensando, por ejemplo, en la atención precisamente a las personas de la tercera edad, que es un nicho de trabajo que existe y que va a perdurar en el tiempo porque, por desgracia, Europa cada vez está más envejecida, o en otro tipo de cosas vinculadas a productos de calidad, porque nunca vamos a poder competir desde esos territorios en precios. Entonces, me gustaría que ese tema se tuviese en cuenta y que, bueno, en el próximo diálogo anual, si hay tiempo, se pueda presentar. Estamos elaborando un informe sobre ese tema de la despoblación y, si fuera posible, nos gustaría presentarlo para que reflexionemos también sobre eso. Y le agradezco muchísimo a la Presidencia Europea belga ese informe del CESE en ese sentido. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Really, really good point. Do we have any more hands in the audience for the moment? Just anyone who else wants to bring anything in, maybe actually on that same area of what is assessed. So who and what, rather, what is assessed. Because that seems to be, if you don't have the right data, you can't make the right decisions. So a really good point there about if you just look at employment figures, it doesn't tell you the whole story.
Let me just add something about that. At the end of my mandate, so I'm still minister for 1 month at this time, we'll see after, I have a conviction, and my conviction is that the challenge on just transition is a governance one. We have to finish with the silo approach where we take some decision on with the environmental issue without taking into account the social aspect. And even when we talk about poverty, we also have to have in mind that the transition is also a social issue. And so we have to finish with this silo approach, first of all. So, yeah, my conviction is that no, the challenge is a governance one. And I was thinking about something, but I'll lose it, so I will come back if it comes back in my mind. But I guess that we have to put, well, it will be a priority in my political agenda during this election, but also negotiation for the future negotiation is the governance issue.
And it's understanding what each region needs and what success looks like to a different region, because it may be very different in one place than it is in the other. Minister's only here for a few more minutes, so let's just get another point. We've got a question down over there. Yep, I think, grabbing a microphone around there, fantastic.
Hi, my name is Eliza Barne. I work for Bankwatch Romania. I lead the Just Transition campaign. First of all, I wanted to congratulate you, Madam Minister, for the work you've done on just transition during the Belgian presidency of the Council. I think we can all agree here that it's been a pioneering one, and we can only hope that other presidency will follow in your lead. I wanted to extrapolate a bit the discussion on a point that you mentioned on the just transition as a conceptual framework beyond the boundaries of these territories. And how do you see the mainstreaming of the just transition across policy domains? Because it's clear, it's becoming more and more evident with the farmers' protests, with Gilets jaunes a couple of years ago, that the Green Deal is not going to happen if we don't have a social equity to go with it. And how do you see this, considering that rather than being in a narrative of planetary boundaries, as you mentioned, we're still in a narrative of maybe replacing one dependency with another and still talking about green growth? And
thank you very much for your question.
I'm not sure that I have the answer. It's a question that I have in mind every day. So sorry for that, but I'll try to elaborate something about it. So I will come back to what I've just said, the governance issue. I see it in my own government. When we're talking about the climate crisis, my colleagues look at this point only as an environmental issue, without taking into account what I saw also during my first speech, that the climate crisis, but also the biodiversity loss and the chemical pollution have also social issues, because we see how violent are the effects of those crises, much more for the poorest of us. And so I don't have any other, it's not only a narrative, it's the reality. And we've seen it in Wallonie in 2021, in Verviers. There were, I have to search my word, les inondations. How do you say it in English? Sorry. The storm, yeah. So the impacts of that was not in the richest and highest quarters of the city, but in the poorest quarters. So in name of the narrative has to be that in name of the social justice, we have to go through the transition. And it's not only, it's the reality. And unfortunately, each day, the climate crisis is not anymore beers in Arctic. It happens every day also in Europe. And so even if we can convince people who still believe in the growth without taking into account the boundaries, they will more and more face the consequences of our inactions. And I have to just see that unfortunately, when we are facing those dramatic consequences, for a few days, you think that that's the moment that we will see the shift. And I have to confess that it doesn't even happen in Belgium after what happens in Wallonie. So I have no answer. Every day I try to put on the table the link and the need to have a systemic approach to tackle the ecological crisis, but also the democratic crisis and the question of poverty. So it's only, I guess, in a systematic way that we can answer to everything. We cannot build our own transition without taking into account the consequences of the choices we made here for others, in the south, for example. And I give always as example the electrification. We know that for the electrification, we need critical raw materials. But we know from where they come and in which condition we find that. And so, yes, it's only with the, so as I've said, finish with the silo approach and adopting a systemic approach that we will tackle together those crises. And so it's a reflection, it's a daily reflection that I share with you, but I'm not sure that's a clear answer for you, so sorry for that.
It's a question, it's a topic that has been mentioned already this morning. I tell you what I'm going to do in the limited time we have. I'm going to give you a few of the big topics. I know your time is tight. Some of the big topics that came up this morning, and if I'm missing any, I'd like you to let me know, okay? So it was the importance of dealing with a change of identity in a community and keeping the pride so that a community can still be proud of who they are while navigating their change of identity. And in many communities, there's a lot of history there to overcome. Grab your microphone. So,
I'm very happy because it's the first time that I heard in these words so changing identity. I think that even if I'm convinced of what we are doing in U2, I've never think about it in those terms. And now hearing it, I say, but yes, it's clear. Yeah.
Getting a good mix of SMEs with entrepreneurs, startups, I know that that's something that you're across. We had a really interesting point from earlier about ensuring that investment was long-term, but not just the finance was long-term, the interest in an area was long-term, so that you had a company moving in and putting down roots within an area, not just throwing a bit of money and moving on, and getting the grassroots communities together. And I think this goes back to what you were just saying, and also tackling skepticism, ensuring that the community is engaged. And I did the primary school test earlier. Shall I ask the Minister about this? So one of our panelists was, actually, no, I'm so sorry, it was the Commissioner Ferreira, was saying, you need to talk to primary school teachers. Do you talk to primary school teachers? Yes?
When they invite me, I go, yeah. And I think that my hope is on those new generation, because they will grow up with, for our generations, the environmental question came as an added chapter in a business as usual model. And we see the limit of such an approach. And I'm convinced that the youngest generation who are growing up with the environmental crisis will much more be aware than us that it is a model that we have to change. It's not only to deal with the current model. We really have to change the paradigm. And my hope goes to those generations, and it's always a pleasure to have the opportunity to change with them, to exchange with them.
Let me go to the voice of the audience. We have a very large online audience today. Marina, what are they saying?
So we have a question saying, how can we deal with the fact that many of the projects that we've seen enacted in Europe, and more specifically the person asking from central Germany, have focused on attracting investment and skill in the area. However, the people that are experiencing the most poverty in these regions are not directly impacted by these projects. So the projects are serving the big companies.
And so I think that the biggest difficulty of the transition policies are indeed that the impact is in not in the short term, it's in the middle and long term. And so we have to deal with realities in the short term, and so bringing answers for the moment that they are living. But yeah, I just can't say that, because it's clear that the transitional policies, if I may call them like that, give their benefits in the middle or much longer term. And that's why we've seen it during the energy crisis, when, because of the crisis, we have to come back to some policies that we hope that we'll never need them. And so, for the moment, we try some new policies. We try to make some new choices, but in a world which is not yet changing. And so we are dealing with two realities. We have to answer with answers from the old world, if I may call it like that, during the time as a transition time, the time that those new dynamics, the new policies give them, but it's a reality. You have a process in much more longer time, and you have urgent deals that you have to answer at this moment. And so we play with two agendas, if I may call it like that.
If I may, it sounds like it comes down to good communication with grassroots again and keeping communities on board. I hope you feel that you've gained some experience and knowledge and awareness of what people here have been talking about.
Yeah, not enough, so I will stay there and still listen to you.
Fantastic.
Yeah, thank you very much for that.
Well, we're delighted that you are here. Ladies and gentlemen, Minister, thank you.